Drone operators of the 412th Reid Unmanned Aerial Systems Battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, together with the Dzhmil unit of the 78th Brigade, detected and struck 3 Bucha M2 and Bucha M3 anti-aircraft missile systems belonging to the Russian army in the Kursk region of Russia within 12 hours. As a result of the strikes carried out by FPV drones, the launchers and radars of the complexes, each worth $50 million, were blown up and disabled. The strikes caused the detonation of missiles in the launchers, which resulted in a powerful explosion. Although one of the complexes, which additional devices were disabled, tried to move away from the area, it could not do so and became the target of drone strikes.
In the Kherson region, the command of the 80th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces is simply zeroing out the personnel of its units, throwing them into meat assaults on the Dnieper Islands. The TG channel reports Ukrainian partisan movement Atesh with reference to Russian servicemen from the aforementioned brigade. It is emphasized that the command is giving frankly destructive orders, setting the soldiers the task of gaining a foothold on the Dnieper Islands at any cost. The recent assaults have once again ended in complete failure. The losses during the latest assaults in the area of Golubov-Liman Island amounted to 26 people killed and more than 20 wounded, the report notes. Unreasonable orders drive ordinary servicemen of the Russian armed forces to despair. There is a massive unwillingness to carry out orders in units. It is also emphasized that the dead Russians are not being evacuated from the zero area, and the wounded are not being provided with timely assistance, which significantly reduces the morale of the personnel of the aforementioned brigade. Recently, agents noted that servicemen of the 80th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces have suffered losses similar to those suffered by the occupiers during training on the crossing water obstacles in the Kherson region. Recruits are sent there from a training camp in the so-called Crimea to prepare for the assaults on the Dnieper Islands. It is also known that the training is conducted in a tough mode. Soldiers in full gear are loaded into a boat and driven at full speed down the Dnieper, as a result of which many fall out and drown. The commanders don't even try to save them. The number of dead Russian servicemen is already in the dozens, but the training continues. After such training, the newcomers are sent in small groups of 2 to 3 people to storm the islands. There, they are simply thrown ashore, with the task of gaining a foothold without cover and normal evacuation, the report says. The partisans add that because of this, Russian soldiers are not completing their missions and therefore continue to suffer losses. In the process of sending such groups, one commander said, "Well, now your batch will end and the next one will be brought." The movement's agents added, the Russian army has probably started using M30 howitzers, which were mass-produced during World War II at the front. This is further evidence of the aggressor country's lack of modern artillery. The first to report about the use of a Stalin-era cannon by Russians was an OSINT researcher operating on the X platform under the pseudonym The Dead District. Later, Russian Z publics spread this message without denying it. The Ukrainian military analytical portal Defense Express notes that according to publicly available information, up to 20,000 M30 units were still in storage in Russia. Only its successor, the D30, has more, about 2,400 units. Experts note that the M30 is inferior to the D30 in all characteristics, in the number of service personnel, firing speed and range. However, if the Russians have decided to remove the M30 from storage from the Second World War, analysts see specific motives in this. Obviously, in this case, the Russian army wants to obtain the appropriate salvo mass by preserving old artillery systems to support the actions of its assault groups with fire. At the same time, the shorter firing range, and possibly worse, compared to the same D-30, may seem like an acceptable level of problem to the Russian military, writes Defense Express. The 122mm M30 howitzer is a Soviet towed howitzer that saw extensive use during World War II and the post-war period. The gun was developed in 1938, accepted into service in 1939, and was mass-produced from 1940 to 1955. A total of more than 19,200 units were produced. The firing range was up to 11.8 kilometers, which was a good indicator for its time, but extremely insufficient for modern warfare. For understanding, the modern Ukrainian Bogdana fires a basic projectile at 40 to 42 kilometers. The M30 became one of the most widely used howitzers in the Red Army, was actively used in Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, and remained in service with some countries until the 21st century. Russian armored vehicles do not last long at the front. Military expert and former SBU officer Ivan Stupak spoke about this on Channel 24. The Russian Federation burned everything that was built during the war during its independence. The fat times, the 2000s and 2010s, when there was a lot of money and investments. It was all burned. Now all the tanks that are manufactured are not sent to warehouses, they are immediately sent to the front and are also burned there. Approximately 2 to 3 of what our grandfathers churned out, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, from the 50s to the 90s of the last century, were also put out of order. The Russian Federation is actively burning the fat reserves created earlier, Stupak said. Therefore, according to the expert, the future possible offensive of the Russian Federation, which is being actively discussed, is unlikely to involve a large amount of equipment. Now, in certain areas, they will use whatever they find, whatever they steal. They will take it from civilians. Some volunteers will give it to them. Loaves of bread, Nivas, Volgas, buggies, motorcycles, scooters, they have it all. Those who don't have the brains to find all this, they go on foot, Stupak added.